Did you know that the breakfast you've been eating for years, the one you genuinely believe is healthy, could be the exact reason your blood sugar won't come down? I'm not talking about something exotic or complicated. I'm talking about that simple, humble food sitting in your refrigerator right now. Used the wrong way, it can send your glucose through the roof. Used correctly, it can be one of the most powerful tools you have for getting your numbers under control. Today, I'm going to walk you through everything the evidence supports about eggs and diabetes, because there's a truth here that most people have never been told, and it's been affecting their morning numbers for years without them realizing it. I know exactly where you are right now. You're being careful. You're trying to eat well. You're following the advice you were given. And yet, your numbers stay stubbornly high, not moving the way you need them to. That's exhausting. That's demoralizing. It makes you feel like your body simply isn't responding, no matter what you do. What I'm going to show you today has the potential to change that story, because the problem, more often than not, isn't your body. It's the information you were given. And outdated information does quiet damage every single day. I'm Dr. Marcus Bennett. If you want to receive practical, evidence-based guidance like this every week, subscribe right now and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. What I share here is designed to help you make smarter decisions about your health, with real information, not trends. Subscribe now. It takes 2 seconds, and stay through to the end, because what's coming up later could genuinely shift your numbers starting tomorrow morning. Before we talk about eggs, there's something I need to explain, because without this foundation, the rest won't land the way it should. When you have diabetes, your body has difficulty processing carbohydrates. That's well established. But what often doesn't get explained is that not all foods affect your blood sugar the same way. And some foods don't just avoid raising it. They actually help reduce the impact of the other foods you eat alongside them. Protein is one of those quiet allies. When you eat quality protein together with carbohydrates, something important happens. The protein acts as a natural brake, slowing down the rate at which the sugar from those carbohydrates enters your bloodstream. Instead of that sharp spike that leaves you at 200 an hour later, you get a slower, more controlled rise that your body can manage without nearly as much stress. And eggs are one of the most complete and accessible sources of protein available. 2 whole eggs give you approximately 12 grams of high-quality protein, all the essential amino acids your body requires and cannot produce on its own. The glycemic index of an egg is 0. Absolute 0. The egg itself doesn't move your blood sugar a single point, but combined correctly, it can help keep everything else you eat from spiking it either. And here's what the clinical picture shows, something that still catches a lot of people off guard. Many Americans with diabetes have been avoiding eggs for years out of concern over cholesterol. They've gone months, sometimes years, without them, believing they were doing their hearts a favor. Meanwhile, their blood sugar stays elevated, their energy stays low, and in some cases, their cholesterol actually worsens. Because what replaced the egg at breakfast wasn't something better. It was white bread, instant oatmeal, fruit juice, boxed cereal, simple carbohydrates that convert to sugar rapidly, with nothing to slow them down. No protein acting as a brake. This is a well-recognized pattern at this point, and it plays out in clinical settings across the country. I've watched this exact scenario unfold more times than I can count. One patient I think about regularly came to see me about 10 months ago. She was 64 years old, had been managing type 2 diabetes for 8 years, and walked in carrying a folder full of labs she'd accumulated over time. She sat down across from me, and before I said a word, she began to cry. Not with panic, but with the deep exhaustion of someone who has fought a long battle and no longer knows what to try next. Dr. Bennett, she said, wiping her eyes, I have done everything they told me. I gave up eggs almost 2 years ago because my previous doctor said the cholesterol was dangerous for my heart. I changed my breakfast. I eat oatmeal every morning with a piece of fruit and a glass of natural juice because I was told that was the healthy choice. I take my medications without missing a single dose. I walk 3 times a week. And still, my fasting blood sugar is between 155 and 175 every morning. My A1C is 8.2%. My LDL didn't go down. It went up. I'm doing everything right, and nothing is working. When she described her breakfast in detail, the picture became immediately clear. Instant oatmeal with honey and a ripe banana, plus a glass of fresh orange juice. That breakfast, as healthy as it sounds, was a substantial load of fast-absorbing carbohydrates with almost no protein to slow them down. Her blood sugar was climbing to 210 or 220 every morning, roughly 30 minutes after eating. And because there was no protein keeping her satisfied, by 10 a.m. she was already hungry, already looking for something to snack on. Her body never had a moment of metabolic calm. Her pancreas never got a break. Glucose up, glucose down, up again, down again, an unrelenting cycle throughout the day. I walked her through carefully what the more recent evidence says about eggs and cholesterol, because the information she'd received was outdated, and it was causing her real, measurable harm. Medicine has understood for some time now that for most people the cholesterol you eat in food is not the primary driver of the cholesterol in your blood. Your liver produces cholesterol independently, and what influences it most is not dietary cholesterol from whole foods. It's refined sugars and trans fats. In fact, the evidence has been consistent, showing that eating whole eggs can improve cholesterol profiles, raising HDL, the protective kind, and shifting LDL particles from the small, dense form that raises cardiovascular risk toward larger, more benign particles. The clinical consensus on this has solidified considerably over the past decade. I proposed a specific, concrete change. Nothing radical, nothing complicated. Just replacing the breakfast that was spiking her glucose every morning with one built around real protein. I explained how to prepare eggs correctly, what to pair them with, and how many to eat. 2 weeks later, she called me, and her voice was entirely different from that first appointment. Dr. Bennett, my blood sugar after breakfast is 140, not 210, 140. I checked 3 mornings in a row to be sure. By the 1-month mark, her fasting glucose had dropped from 165 to 142. At 3 months, her A1C had moved from 8.2% to 7.5%. Her LDL, which had worried her so much, came down as well. And she said something to me that stayed with me. For the first time in years, I wake up actually looking forward to breakfast because I know what I'm eating is going to work with my body, not against it. But stay with me, because what comes next is the practical part. Exactly what you need to know to start experiencing this yourself. The first thing worth understanding about how many eggs you can eat comes down to setting aside a fear that's been circulating for decades. For most people with diabetes who don't have severe kidney disease or specific contraindications, eating 2 to 3 whole eggs per day is not only safe, it's genuinely beneficial. I emphasize whole eggs because the yolk matters, and it matters considerably. For years, the advice was to discard the yolk and keep only the white. That guidance was based on information that the science has since revised substantially. The yolk is where the majority of the egg's nutrients reside. It contains choline, which is essential for fat metabolism in the liver. And when you have diabetes, your liver needs all the support it can get. It contains vitamin D, which multiple studies have linked to improved insulin sensitivity at the cellular level, meaning your cells respond more efficiently to the insulin your pancreas produces. It contains lutein and zeaxanthin, two compounds that protect the eyes from the damage that chronically elevated blood sugar can cause over time. And if there's one organ a person with diabetes needs to protect carefully, it's their eyes. It also contains B vitamins that support nervous system function, helping to prevent the tingling in the feet and hands that many people with diabetes begin to notice over the years. Don't discard the yolk. Eat the whole egg. That's where the benefit lives. And here is what makes the real difference. The part that changes everything. It's not just how many eggs you eat, it's how you prepare them. Because you can have the best food available and completely undermine its benefits through preparation. In my experience, the way most people cook their eggs is precisely the method that does the most damage to their numbers. Frying them in generous amounts of oil or butter and pairing them with white toast or flour tortillas is a combination that can push glucose to 200 with unsettling consistency. Not because the egg is the problem, but because everything surrounding it is a mix of saturated fat and refined carbohydrates that temporarily blunts insulin response while simultaneously spiking glucose. The right way to prepare eggs is simpler than most people expect. Scrambled eggs in a non-stick pan with no oil added are ideal. The egg contains enough natural fat that it won't stick. Beat them lightly, pour them into a warm pan over medium heat, and move them gently for 2 to 3 minutes until just set, but still creamy. Hard-boiled eggs are the most practical option. Place them in cold water, bring to a boil, and leave them 10 minutes for a firm yolk, or 6 minutes if you prefer it softer. You can prepare them the night before and keep them in the refrigerator. A vegetable-loaded omelet is another excellent choice. Beat 2 eggs and add fresh spinach, tomato, onion, mushrooms, or whatever vegetables you have on hand. All in a non-stick pan without oil. The vegetables add fiber that further enhances the blood sugar stabilizing effect and provides volume so you feel satisfied without increasing your carbohydrate load. Tell me in the comments how you usually prepare your eggs. I always find it useful to know where someone is starting from, so I can offer guidance that's specific to their situation. Now, beyond preparation, what you pair with the egg has the greatest influence on your glucose response. Avocado is the ideal companion for someone with diabetes. The healthy fat in avocado doesn't raise blood sugar. It actually slows digestion and promotes a more stable glucose curve. Spinach provides magnesium, a mineral that a significant number of Americans with diabetes have in lower than optimal levels, and which plays a meaningful role in insulin sensitivity. Tomatoes, bell peppers, mushrooms, all excellent partners because they provide fiber with minimal carbohydrate impact. This combination, 2 eggs prepared without oil, half an avocado, and a generous portion of vegetables, can keep your blood sugar stable for 4 to 5 hours. That means you reach lunch without desperate hunger, and without those carbohydrate cravings that are so difficult to resist when glucose has already dropped. Don't go anywhere. What's coming next is something most people don't know, and it can make a substantial difference in your morning numbers. Most people think of eggs as a breakfast food only, and while breakfast is the most powerful time to eat them, because it stabilizes your blood sugar from the very start of the day and limits the spikes that would otherwise occur with a carbohydrate-heavy morning, eggs at dinner carry a benefit that consistently surprises people when I mention it in practice. When you eat quality protein at dinner instead of carbohydrates, something important occurs overnight. Your liver, which normally releases glucose continuously while you sleep, does so in a more moderate, controlled fashion. This can translate directly into a lower fasting glucose reading the next morning. The pattern I've observed suggests this shift can represent a difference of 15 to 20 points in fasting glucose for some individuals. Consider waking up tomorrow to a lower number on your glucometer. Not because you added a medication, but because you had 2 eggs with vegetables for dinner instead of rice or bread. And here's what rarely gets discussed. The most common mistakes people with diabetes make when they try to eat eggs more healthfully. The first is frying them, even in a small amount of olive oil, under the assumption that since it's olive oil, it's fine. Olive oil is genuinely beneficial when used cold, over salads. But when heated to frying temperature, it loses a portion of its properties and adds unnecessary calories and fat that your body doesn't need, when the egg itself already brings its own natural fat. The second mistake is pairing eggs with a glass of fresh squeezed orange juice. Many people believe natural juice is in a different category from packaged juice. And while that's true in some respects, for a person with diabetes, fresh juice is still liquid sugar without fiber that enters the bloodstream rapidly. A whole orange with its fiber intact is a substantially better option. The third mistake is adding processed cheese or cured meats like deli ham or breakfast sausage. These products carry elevated sodium levels and additives that don't benefit blood pressure or general health. If you want to add cheese, use a small amount of fresh cheese or cottage cheese in moderate quantities. I want to share another case that illustrates how these small, targeted changes translate into real outcomes. A patient of mine, I'll call him Arthur, came in about 7 months ago with a quiet resignation that I noticed immediately. He was a composed man, not many words, who placed his labs on the desk without comment and waited for me to speak first. His A1C was 8.6%. His average fasting glucose was around 178. He'd had type 2 diabetes for 5 years and had been on metformin for 3 of them. He told me his daily breakfast was 2 fried eggs in oil, refried beans, and corn tortillas. He believed he was eating reasonably well because he was including eggs and beans, both protein sources. But the problem was the preparation and the combination. The frying oil, the fat in the refried beans, and the tortillas together created exactly the kind of metabolic friction that was pushing his glucose up every morning. I suggested one specific, concrete change. Instead of fried eggs, he would make them hard-boiled or scrambled without oil. Instead of refried beans, he would eat whole beans prepared with less added fat. Instead of 3 tortillas, he would have 1, and add fresh vegetables to compensate for the volume. That was the only change we made at first. 3 weeks later, Arthur came in for his follow-up, and for the first time since I'd known him, he allowed himself a small, genuine smile. My morning numbers are between 145 and 155, Dr. Bennett. Before, they never came in below 170. I didn't change anything else, just what you told me about breakfast. At 4 months, his A1C had dropped to 7.8%. His primary care physician asked what he'd done differently, and Arthur answered with the straightforwardness that defined him. I changed how I cook my eggs. That was it. Now let me give you something concrete and practical that you can apply starting tomorrow morning without memorizing anything complicated. The ideal breakfast for a person with diabetes who wants to use eggs effectively looks like this: 2 eggs scrambled without oil in a non-stick pan, or 2 hard-boiled eggs paired with half a ripe avocado and a generous portion of vegetables, spinach, tomato, or bell peppers. If you feel you need something more, you can add 1 small slice of genuine whole grain bread, one with visible seeds, dense in texture, not the light fluffy kind, but eat it after the eggs, not before. If you start with the bread, your blood sugar rises before the protein has a chance to do its work. If you start with the eggs, the protein is already working when the carbohydrate from the bread arrives, and the impact on your glucose is considerably reduced. For mid-morning, if hunger sets in before lunch, a hard-boiled egg prepared the night before, paired with a small handful of walnuts or almonds, is a combination that barely moves blood sugar and sustains you until your next meal without triggering cravings. For dinner, if you want to take advantage of that fasting glucose benefit I mentioned, A 2-egg omelet with abundant vegetables and no bread is a light, nutritious, and metabolically powerful dinner for the number you'll see on your glucometer the following morning. And this next point is important. I don't want you to overlook it. If you're taking metformin, eggs do not interfere with your medication in any way. You can eat them without concern. If you're taking insulin, it's worth discussing with your physician when you begin shifting to a higher protein breakfast, because protein can enhance insulin function and your numbers may come down more than expected. That's not inherently a problem, but your doctor needs to know so they can make any necessary adjustments to your dosing. Always, without exception, your personal physician should be aware of any changes you make to your diet, especially when you're managing medications. Communication with your medical team is a fundamental part of good glucose control, not optional. One more thing worth addressing, a question that comes up regularly in practice. Egg quality matters, but it doesn't have to be perfect for you to benefit. Pasture-raised organic eggs do carry higher levels of omega-3s and vitamin D compared to conventional eggs. If you have access to them and they fit your budget, they're an excellent choice. But if organic eggs aren't accessible or affordable, conventional eggs from the grocery store are still an extraordinarily nutritious food. Don't let the absence of the organic option be a reason to avoid eggs altogether. The benefit of including them correctly in your diet substantially outweighs the difference between organic and conventional. Before we close, I want to leave you with something that I think is worth carrying with you. The egg is not your enemy. It never was. What may have been working against you, without your knowing it, was how you were preparing it and what you were pairing it with. When you change that, when you start cooking eggs without added oil, when you combine them with avocado and vegetables instead of white bread and processed meats, when you include them not just at breakfast, but as an option for dinner, you're giving your body a real, practical tool for stabilizing blood sugar in a way that medication alone cannot replicate. That's clinical observation, not theory. My patient from the beginning of this video said it as plainly as it can be said in her last appointment. Dr. Bennett, I thought controlling my diabetes was a battle I was never going to win. Turns out, part of the solution was in my refrigerator the whole time. I just needed to know how to use it. That's exactly what I want for you. For the right information to give you back a sense of control. So that every morning, when you open your refrigerator and see those eggs, you see them not with concern, but with the quiet confidence of knowing exactly how to use them to your advantage. This video is intended for educational and informational purposes only. Always consult your personal physician before making changes to your diet or treatment plan, because every individual is different, and what works well for most people may need adjustment based on your specific circumstances. If this video gave you a clearer picture, and you feel like someone finally explained the egg and diabetes connection in a way that actually makes sense, I'd ask you to subscribe to this channel right now. Every week, I share information like this, designed specifically to help you live better with diabetes. With real data, no false promises, and no unnecessary complexity. Leave a like if this was useful, and share it with someone you know who needs to hear this today. That simple gesture could genuinely shift the numbers of someone you care about. Tell me in the comments what change you're going to make first in the way you prepare your eggs. I read every comment, and knowing this information is reaching the people who need it matters to me. Your body is more capable of responding than you may believe right now. Give it the right information to work with. I'll see you in the next one.